Anti-Zionism versus anti-Semitism. I think it's pretty crazy that they have, on the one hand, they have literally Douglas Murray, who is a psychopathic right-wing propagandist from England, versus Mehdi Hasan, who's like a pretty solid journalist, and Gideon Levy. This is so cooked. Who's the other person? I don't even know who the other person is. This tweet sums up the debate. Shocking to hear that the audience who booed Oxfam and shouted anti-Semite as Mehdi talked about Doctors Without Borders thought Douglas Murray won the debate.
Doctors Without Borders, Amnesty International, Human Rights Watch, Oxfam, Christian Aid. Yep, you're booing. What does it come to when you're booing Oxfam? What does that tell you about yourselves? You're sitting here booing Oxfam to defend Benjamin Netanyahu. Let me just deal with something you just said. You talked about debunking propaganda. First of all, you can't even get Israeli propaganda straight. The Israeli government's own security agency, Shin Bet, investigated what you just said and said, no, we found no evidence that workers from Gaza were involved in the October 7th attack. Oh, Shin Bet alive. They're booing Shin Bet, the Israeli security service. Got it. But if you're going to focus on October 7th, then also focus on what happened since October the 7th, the erasure of Palestinians in this debate, the booing when Gideon mentions what happened to Palestinians. Shameful. I'm sorry to say, it's absolutely shameful and telling about what's going on.
61% of the crowd before the debate started thought anti-Zionism is anti-Semitism. At the end, somehow 66% agreed. Psychos. That's awesome.
And then what happened since? A friend of mine went to Gaza. He's been to Sudan. He doesn't just use it for whataboutism like Douglas. He's been to Sudan. He's been to Afghanistan. He's worked there. He came back from Gaza and said, I've never seen atrocities like I've seen here. What's happened to children? He's an anti-Semite because he saw children with burn wounds like he's never seen. He saw children with gunshot wounds to the head. To the head, but that's Hamas's fault. Everything is Hamas's fault. So let's talk about war crimes. It is amazing that every human rights group in the world, including Israeli human rights groups like B'Tselem, Gisha, Yesh Din, are all documenting this stuff, but you guys think it's all imaginary. So again, it tells you about what Zionism is. This is not about some abstract ideology of, people trying to settle the land and trying to have it. But as Gideon said, there was an argument to be had in the 1940s, 30s, 20s. Zionism today is what the Palestinians are enduring on a daily, nightly basis in Gaza, in the West Bank, in East Jerusalem, in Israel itself. And the erasure of that tells you everything about why we need to be able to talk about what Zionism does to the Palestinians without being smeared as anti-Semites.
What is this? I see you got nicely humiliated by Douglas K. Murray last night in Toronto with the Munk debates. It couldn't have possibly happened to someone more deserving. Yeah, this is hugbox shit, dude. This is people just like trying to do a victory parade, trying to do a victory lap when you're just huffing on unimaginable amounts of copium when like the rest of the world, dude. This is dying empire shit. This is what you do when you're like losing the argument everywhere else. You try to find a place where you are winning. You know what I mean? You just like get together a bunch of people who agree with you, and then you go, see, all these people that agree with me.
When I was last here a couple of years ago, I just returned from the front line of the war in Ukraine, where I was with the Ukrainian armed forces. And for most of the last 8 months, I've been in Israel and Gaza following the war there as closely as I can. And I won't go into all the details now that I could give you of what's happening. But I would just put it in perspective in this way, first of all. What happened on the 7th of October was not just a massive attack on...
Douglas Murray is yet another one of these like classic fucking unimaginably right-wing, unimaginably racist British charlatans that basically fucking revitalize their career post-October 7 by just unconditionally dick-riding Israel. There are many such cases of this. Like a lot of people are like at least somewhat cognizant of Israel's actions. No, this isn't the bell curve guy. He's named after the same. No, that's Charles Murray. I always make that mistake as well. He's just like a massive raging Islamophobe. And the thing is, Douglas Murray was one of those dudes who just like didn't really have like a massive footprint. I only know about it because I know all these like fucking weirdos, even in England, because like, I love these fascinating pets. The thing is like he's gotten a lot more prominence because Israel doesn't really have a lot of at least like cool-headed propagandists that they can deploy, especially as the situation worsens, especially as they become increasingly more violent, increasingly more brutal. Douglas Murray and like Divorcelli are some of the remaining loyal soldiers, basically. If you're in a dire situation when it comes to propaganda and there is mass mobilization occurring against your ethnic cleansing campaign, you're going to rely on whoever the fuck whoever the fuck will do any kind of propaganda at your behest.
You might have expected, like me, that there might have been a worldwide opposition to the terrorists and rapists and murderers of Hamas. You might have thought there'd have been an outpouring of rage at the Islamic Revolutionary Government in Tehran, but no. There was an immediate outpouring of rage against the state that had been attacked. Bring back our girls, we had 10 years ago in the war in northern Nigeria, which I also covered. Bring back our girls. No international campaign saying bring back our Jewish children. Believe all women, we've been told for years. But turns out...
Wait, I don't think Douglas Murray was a big advocate for fucking Me Too, bro. What? He's like a super right-wing guy. Yeah, Depp Heard trial marks the end of the Me Too era. The groupthink tyranny of woke. Douglas Murray. Divided by a race, gender, sexual orientation. Sounds like a bigoted society. Yeah, this guy's not fucking pro Me Too. What are we talking about? Douglas Murray challenges wokeness, identity politics, and groupthink in his new book, The Madness of the Crowds, Gender, Race, and Identity. My man said Me Too only when Israel has declared that there is mass rape happening at the hands of Hamas on October 7. Yeah, also, he literally, I forgot about this. Douglas Murray in Australia. Douglas Murray is arguably the most impressive current advocate globally for Israel in its conflict with Hamas. Australian Academic Alliance Against Anti-Semitism wrote this. Is now a good time to talk about Jews and money. Article by Douglas Murray. That's so funny. He's like said anti-Semitic shit in the past too. He's a fucking classic right-wing guy in the UK.
You know, the interesting thing about anti-Semitism is, as my late friend Jonathan Sachs said, it's a shape-shifting virus. It moves across the centuries. When you could hate people for their religion, the Jews were hated for their religion. Then you couldn't hate people for that anymore. So people hated the Jews for their race. And then...
There's nothing funnier than Douglas Murray, a profoundly Islamophobic person, saying you can no longer hate people for their religion anymore. The fuck do you mean? You have a career built on shitting on Muslims. What are you talking about? You still very much can shit on religion.
You know, the interesting thing about anti-Semitism is the Jews can never win, because historically they've been hated for being rich and for being poor. They've been hated for integrating and for not integrating. They were hated for being stateless. Remember, rootless cosmopolitans, the far right used to say. And now they're hated for having a state.
Brother, what do you mean the far right used to say? You are the far right.
The only really acceptable form of anti-Semitism, aside from the sewers of the far right, the only real tolerated form of anti-Semitism is anti-Zionism. Zionism, as we just heard, is simply the right of the Jews to self-determination in their historic homeland. That's all. Anti-Semitism, as we've also just heard, is double standards against Jewish people or cruel and unfair treatment of people because they're Jews. This isn't very far away from home here. If this isn't anti-Semitism, can the audience here tell me why the following things have happened since October the 7th? Why in a Montreal suburb a synagogue should be firebombed, as happened in November? Why there should have been gunshots against the yeshiva?
Great question. It's because Israel packages all of its actions and masquerades as the defender of Judaism, and people are too stupid to fucking parse through the propaganda and come to their own conclusion that Israel does not represent the Jews. You, Douglas Murray, are going to definitely, in this conversation, bring up on multiple occasions that Israel represents the interests of the Jews. Israel is the Jewish home state. You already mentioned it, literally. You mentioned it literally a couple fucking minutes ago, a couple seconds ago, as a matter of fact. This does not mean that the synagogue attacks are valid or just. They are not. They are acts of anti-Semitism, anti-Semitic violence, as a matter of fact. This is why we say here in this community and on the left that Israel, by packaging Zionism as a fundamental plank of Judaism, when one predates the other by thousands of fucking years, by the way, you are playing into more anti-Semitism spreading, because people see what Israel is doing. There's already a shit ton of anti-Semitism out there. And then when people see what Israel's doing, and then they see American media and Canadian media and all other like people in positions of power go, no, you're actually wrong for thinking that what Israel's doing is fucked up. They do not have a way of like parsing through that information. They're like, well, what? Israel keeps saying they're doing this for the Jews. Everyone else is saying that like me hating Israel means I'm hating Jews. Well, okay, I'm hating Jews then, is literally the fucking, the way of thinking that many people engage in. The expectation that there is going to be someone like myself who parses through this every fucking day of the week, unfortunately unheard of. Israel is exacerbating and creating anti-Semitism by tying the actions of a state and the actions of a fascist ideology like Zionism to Judaism. It is gross. It is very dangerous. It happens to be very beneficial to Zionism, though, so many Zionists continue doing it. If Jews feel unsafe in other parts of the world, in the Western world, they're going to be more interested in moving to Israel or defending Israel because that's the Jewish homeland. It's the only place where Jews can be safe, even though Israel is not exactly safe for Jewish people at all. The one he mentioned in Toronto was solved, actually. Crime briefs. Toronto synagogue member accused of arson. Wait, what? The suspect is a member of the synagogue. Avram Bobrowski, 67 of Toronto, was arrested Friday. Police announced late Sunday and charged with arson, disregard for human life. No, it wasn't a false flag. It's probably some fucking nutter, dude. Not everything has to be a fucking false flag. I don't like this argument either. It makes it seem like real instances of anti-Semitism are all fucking totally made up. Like, it's not. Yeah, he's probably fucking insane, dude. It's more likely that he was just out of his fucking mind and he did that shit. Not that he was, like, specifically doing a self-hate crime so that they can tie it back to, like, Palestinians or whatever. He's just saying a whole bunch of shit he doesn't believe when he says believe women. He doesn't believe women. He has cut so much propaganda against the Me Too movement, against women in general. But now, when it suits the purpose of defending Israel, he's like, well, believe women only works if they're not Jewish women in Israel. It's bullshit. Israel honors British journalist Douglas Murray for supporting post-October 7. Yeah. No, he's been getting fucking glazed. There aren't that many warriors out there who will do this level of propaganda, so they'll gladly have him. They don't give a fuck what he said before October 7.
Why in Toronto, a bookstore owned by a Jew should be attacked. Why in Toronto, the Orthodox synagogue was vandalized. Why in Toronto, 2 men opened fire the other week on a Jewish girls' school. If it isn't anti-Semitism, tell me why just a week ago, pro-Hamas protesters tried to go through Jewish areas in this city shouting, not just Allahu Akbar, but, and I quote, sorry for the language, fucking filthy fucking Zionist pigs, dirty Zionist rats. Have you heard that language before? The Jews have.
Wait, he said Allahu Akbar would have been an anti-Semitic thing that they're saying in Jewish neighborhoods. That kind of revealed his perspective a little bit, didn't it? Is this guy even Jewish? I don't think Douglas Murray is Jewish, no. He's a right-wing charlatan and a fascist. If you're Arab and you say Allahu Akbar, God is great, you're being anti-Semitic. A lot of the stuff that he brought up as far as like anti-Semitic incidents, some of which are describable, like the fucking bookstore that he just calls a Jewish bookstore. I remember what that situation was about. The owner of the bookstore is a major fucking Zionist and was literally trying to fundraise for the IDF. Get the fuck out of here, bro. What are we doing here? Like, what's up? You can't fucking get mad at a person being like, dude, this guy's pro-Ukraine unconditionally. Imagine a fucking Russian bookstore with a Russian owner in Canada being like, oh, I'm pushing Z, you know, fuck this Ukraine bullshit. I'm trying to fucking fund the Russian forces. You would literally go and kill that guy. Suck my fucking dick. Can you imagine? Like, you would literally probably personally execute that person.
History shows only one people will protect the Jewish people. The Jewish people. That's what Zionism is. Thank you.
Well, this guy this crowd seems very open-minded to the notion of maybe anti-Zionism is not anti-Semitism. Bro got a standing ovation for saying that Israel has to exist, otherwise holocausts will happen literally all the time. Israel has to exist in the violent ways that it does by fucking eroding the lives of the fucking existing indigenous Palestinian population, destroying them, doing an ethnic cleansing, doing an apartheid. If it doesn't exist that way, then, you know, Holocaust 2, baby. Which, by the way, Holocaust 1, this fucking dipshit, Douglas Murray, has definitely minimized. Yeah, Gideon Levy being there makes this situation way weirder, too, because he's, like, literally Jewish, descendant of Holocaust survivors, and is a very prominent Israeli reporter. He is like the foremost authority in that room.
Because this motion is not about whether you are pro-Israel or pro-Zionist. It's about whether the rest of us have the right, the freedom to take a different view on Israel, on Zionism, on Benjamin Netanyahu even, without being silenced, without being told we're racists. We're not. Anti-Zionism is not anti-Semitism, because anti-Semitism is hating Jews, the people, and Judaism, the religion. Anti-Zionism is opposing Israel, the state, and Zionism, the ethno-nationalist ideology that underpins that state. Zionism is not Judaism. Let me say that again for the people up top. Zionism is not Judaism. right? It's a very modern, secular, political ideology movement that was founded less than 150 years ago by an atheist named Theodore Herzl, who said, and I quote, "The anti-Semites will be our most dependable friends, the anti-Semitic countries, our allies." His words, not mine. It was the first time a major world power had come out in favor of Zionism, which at the time was a pretty new and pretty controversial movement, calling not just for a Jewish homeland, but for the building of a Jewish majority state in Palestine. And yet the only Jewish member of the British cabinet at that time, a man named Edwin Samuel Montagu, adamantly opposed both Zionism, which he called a mischievous political creed, and the Balfour Declaration, which he referred to as anti-Semitic and a rallying ground for anti-Semites in every country in the world. The only Jewish member of the British cabinet, that is what he said. And yet tonight here in Toronto, over 100 years later, we are being asked to vote for a motion that would damn Montagu as the anti-Semite while praising Balfour as the champion of Jews and Judaism. That's ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
Not. That's precisely the reason why Gideon Levy is on the anti-Semite side of the conversation, and Douglas Murray, who is literally said anti-Semitic shit, is propped up as like a defender of Jews. Because Israel only cares, Zionism means, as a fascist ideology, as a fascist project, the only thing that matters is the continuation of Zionism. Doesn't matter where your background is, doesn't matter what your fucking opinions are. As long as you are pro-Israel, you can be as anti-Semitic as you want. For the record, Ben Shapiro has revealed this. It's not like a secret at all. Ben Shapiro's openly stated this. Immediately, the way they talk is so different. Murray just spoke bullshit. Mehdi Hasan actually talking about history and reality and context. Yeah.
Mehdi seems to think that he can redefine anti-Zionism without you noticing, but the proposition are not going to allow him to pull the wool over your eyes and conflate Zionism with politics. Who has the right to define Zionism? Well, apart from the proposition in this debate, because that's how the rules work. Would you ask a misogynist to define misogyny? You wouldn't ask a sex offender to define rape. You wouldn't ask the KKK to define anti-black racism. So why, when it comes to the Jews, would you let the anti-Zionists define?
Wait, isn't that argument the opposite? Why would you ask someone who is a Zionist, and it doesn't mean that they're like Jewish automatically? In every single one of those issues that she personally mentioned, she said, why would you ask those in power, the powerful party, engaging in the fucking violent actions, what like right of resistance the victims have? Like the dynamic is the exact opposite of the way she presents it. Asking Zionists, not Jews, Zionists, whether they are Christian, whether they're Muslim, whether they are Jewish, doesn't matter. Asking Zionists, those who defend Israel, how they feel about anti-Israeli sentiment is insane. It's no different than fucking asking a Klansman how they feel being called a racist. Yeah, I don't think the Klansman is going to appreciate it. Why the fuck would we ask them that? Yeah, why don't you ask the architects of the South African apartheid to define apartheid? Exactly. That's so weird.
Zionism does not stipulate how the Jewish state should be governed, which is what a political ideology does. It simply says it should exist. It doesn't dictate borders or the makeup of population. It does not say that Israel should be socially.
Wait, what? It's like saying Nazism isn't a political ideology. Yeah, Nazism isn't a political ideology. After all, Nazi Germany did not have like definable boundaries. Nazi Germany had boundaries that consistently expanded, for example, just like Israel had boundaries that consistently expanded.
Israel is the ultimate decolonization success story. Against all odds, after Arab imperialism, Islamic conquest, and British colonialism, the Jews, indigenous to Judea, re-established Israel. My family lived under Ottoman and then British colonialism in Jerusalem long before Yasser Arafat, who was born in Cairo, created Palestinian national identity in the 60s.
Oh, she's hitting every fucking marker. Arafat created the Palestinian identity. Yasser Arafat. This is literally, we heard the same thing from Son of Hamas. Remember Son of Hamas? Oh God, this is so fucking predictable. Yeah, the concept of Palestinian was invented by Yasser Arafat. It's so weird because like, it seems like everybody fully understood what that area was. It's called British Mandate Palestine. If you look at like Jews who immigrated into British Mandate Palestine circa 1948 and their documentation, it literally says Palestine and their place of birth. Why is it that all the maps say Palestine? Why is it straight up that like the early Zionist movement openly fucking said that they were colonialists? Why did they fucking reach out to Cecil Rhodes, you know, and try to set up allegiances? It's just so strange to do as an indigenous movement, a land back movement.
When 5 Arab armies and the local Arab population attacked the fledgling state of Israel with the stated intention of annihilating its people, 700,000 Arabs escaped the fight.
I can already tell what the issue is. Mehdi Hasan is playing to the actual debate boundaries because he's too much of a fucking debate lord. On the other side, the pro-Israel side, they're not doing that. They're just hitting all the propaganda talking points that are so much broader. Nothing that she mentioned has anything to do with like anti-Semitism, anti-Zionism being anti-Semitism. Douglas Murray did a decent job hitting all the pro-Israel talking points, all the Hasbara talking points of modern Hasbara, post-October 7 Hasbara. She is going through all of the talking points of like the historic Hasbara that you hear when you're growing up and going to like Jewish camp or going to Birthright, that kind of shit. Like there are Jewish chatters who probably have heard a lot of the things that she just mentioned.
Those that remained became Israeli citizens. The Arab population of Israel has increased tenfold. This is ethnic cleansing? No. Ethnic cleansing is what happened to the Jews in 1948 when Jordan occupied the West Bank. Ethnic cleansing is what happened to 850,000 Jews expelled from Yemen.
Bro, there's something really crazy about being so close to the Holocaust in history only to fucking turn around and be like, yeah, you know what? In 1948, the real ethnic cleansing happened when the Arabs did it to the Jews. Like that is entirely too close to the Holocaust for you to be like, the real ethnic cleansing? You thought I was going to say the Holocaust did it to you. Turns out, nope.